Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first All Digital Tech Tuesday at 2. We're coming to you live here on Facebook. Unfortunately, we can't be in our usual space in the Edmund Lowe Creative Studios, but we're not going to stop the program just for that. We're going to keep everything going. And we are here today with a very special presentation. We're going to discuss the fundamentals of design with a OSU designer, Caitlin Little. She's been with us for a little while. She studied graphic design here, graduated from here, and is now actually doing graphic design for the university in the Office of Brand Management. So she kind of knows what she's talking about. We're really excited to have you here. Unfortunately, today, obviously, we can't give away prizes like we usually do. But when we come back to campus in the fall, for the fall season of Tech Tuesday, we'll have those prizes for you. But I do have some news for you. You can win up to $1,000 through the Library Creativity Award. You can find out more about that by sticking around to the end of the program, or you can just Google OSU Library Creativity Award while you're watching the program, and you'll find everything you need. But we'll jump right into it. Without further ado, here is OSU's own Caitlin Little.
Thanks, Will. Good afternoon, Cowboys. I hope you guys are all healthy and well and adjusting to this online period. As Will said earlier, my name is Caitlin, and we're going to go over the fundamentals of design. So to understand what design is, to understand design, first you have to understand what it is. So essentially, what is graphic design? It's the ability to turn images, words, and ideas into a visual message that conveys information to a particular audience. In other words, it's magic. In all seriousness though, basically graphic design is the ability to just visually communicate something. So what are the basic principles of design and how can I use them effectively? Unfortunately, no two texts can agree on how many principles there are, let alone which ones they are. Are there 6, 12, 144 principles? Who really knows? Due to time constraints, though, we're going to be discussing the top 5 principles that I think are most relevant to the audience today. And those would be balance, composition, type, color, and negative space. So, balance. What is it? Balance lends stability and structure to an overall composition. All shapes, images, and text in your design have a visual weight to them. Some elements are heavy and draw the eye, while some elements are lighter. It's important to find proper balance between all of it, or else your design will look unsteady. Balance doesn't always mean making things perfectly symmetrical. Well-designed compositions can be asymmetrical as well, but the visual weight still has to be evenly distributed. Balance can be affected by many things, including color, size, number, and space. These groupings of things is called your composition, sort of. Which leads me to my next point, composition. Your composition isn't just what you put on a page, but it's how it's arranged. A successful composition is one that not only looks good, but is functional as well. The purpose of design is to get a message across to its intended audience, and if it doesn't, then it's lost its usefulness. Thankfully, there are a couple of tools to help your composition reach its full potential. Those are grids and alignment. A grid system is probably one of the more important pieces of this puzzle. A grid is the underlying structure that the design was built on, similar to a foundation of a house. Grids can come in all shapes and sizes, but one of the more common ones is a 3x3 grid layout. This is where the grid is broken up into thirds, both horizontally and vertically, where the lines intersect, and where the lines intersect is a potential focal point for that design. This is called the rule of thirds, and it's commonly used in photography. By placing your subject on or near one of these lines, it provides the opportunity to add more visual interest and motion than if everything was dead center. That's not to say that all centered designs are bad, because they certainly have their uses. Just think of the rule of thirds and other grids as an extra tool in your back pocket. So if the grid is the foundation to the design, what good is a grid if you don't follow it, or what good is a foundation if you don't build on it? This is where alignment comes into play. Alignment is the placement of elements in your composition so that they line up rather than just float around randomly. It brings a sense of order and clarity to a design by eliminating sloppiness that can occur when objects are randomly placed. Alignment is used to group elements together to create balance, structure, and to create connections between other elements in your design. So once you have the basic layout defined, it's time to actually start putting your design together. This is where type comes in. Typography can seem a little daunting when words like typeface, baseline, kerning are all thrown around, but a beginning designer really only needs to know two things. What is a typeface, and how can I use it to effectively communicate my message? A typeface is the collective name of a family of fonts. Fonts are individual weights, widths, and sizes and styles of that particular typeface that make up that family. Every font communicates a tone, whether it's formal, friendly, confident, etc. There are 4 basic categories of type. There's the serif. Serif typefaces have small decorative lines that are added to the ends of each character or letter. Then there's sans serif, and sans serif basically means without serif and does not contain these embellishments. Commonly used sans serif fonts are Helvetica, Gotham, Din, and Avenir. And then we have script, which looks like handwriting and is usually used more for headlines due to its low readability. And then finally, we have decorative. Decorative fonts are typically used in headlines and designed as a graphical element, artwork, or image as part of the design. Whatever type category you choose, make sure that it matches the tone of your design and limit the number of fonts in any given project to around 2 or 3. Anything more than that invites clutter and confusion. Good font pairings could be, for example, a serif header with a sans serif body, a sans serif header paired with a serif body copy, or a decorative header with a sans serif body copy. Choosing a font or font pairing in a design is important, but what's equally important is making your headers and subheaders stand out from your body copy. This is called visual hierarchy. One of the main rules of visual hierarchy is to help keep your content organized so that your audience can always identify which category of information they're reading. It helps make your design scannable. If everything were the same font, height, and weight, then nothing would jump out and catch their attention. An example of visual hierarchy is a newspaper. Most readers don't read a paper from top to bottom, left to right. Their eyes jump around on the page, looking for a headline that interests them. If there was no hierarchy, then the paper would be of no use. So size of the text isn't the only thing that can create visual hierarchy, though. Color can also play an important role. Color helps attract your audience's eye. When used appropriately, color can communicate something to the user without words at all, by evoking certain emotion. For example, banks use the color blue because it gives off a feeling of security, and lawn care companies use green because it feels natural, like the grass they maintain. So how do we know which colors look good and together and which ones don't? This is where color theory comes into play. Color theory is both the science and the art of using color. It explains how humans perceive color and the visual effects of how colors mix, match, or contrast with each other. In school, we probably all remember learning about the color wheel and primary colors and secondary colors. If not, no worries, we'll quickly walk through them. Your primary colors are the root colors that make up every other color you see. These are red, blue, and yellow. Your secondary colors are equal mixes of each primary color. For example, red and yellow make orange, one of my favorite colors. Blue and red make purple, and yellow and blue make green. And then finally, rounding out the color wheel are our tertiary colors. Tertiary colors make up the final segment of the color wheel and are basically a mix of a secondary color with a primary color. For example, yellow and orange make yellow orange, and blue and purple make blue purple or violet. But adding a bunch of vibrant colors to your design still isn't the best solution when it comes to colors and color palettes. This is where saturation and value come into play. So saturation is the overall intensity of that particular color and whether or not that color is more subtle or vibrant. And then value is how dark or light the color is, ranging from black to white and all the other values in between. For example, this right over here is kind of more of a brownish hue thanks to its lendings to black. And then this one is a much lighter orange because of all the white that's been added. Because of color mixing, saturation and value, you've gone from the 9 standard colors on the color wheel to an infinite number, which can be a little overwhelming. I definitely don't recommend adding every color under the sun to your design. Sometimes all you need is a neutral palette, whites, grays, and blacks, with a small pop of color to really help your design stand out. Since we could use the entire 30 minutes on color alone, I'm just going to point out a couple of resources for you to use to find that perfect color palette. Color.adobe.com is my absolute favorite website when looking for different color schemes and when I'm looking for just that little bit of inspiration. I can either play around with the color wheel and try and find my own palette, or I can explore what others have created and copy and edit that particular color combination. So it's incredibly useful. And then the other two are super helpful resources as well, but I usually lean towards color.adobe for the most part. Speaking of a neutral palette and introducing pops of color, we can't forget about the white space, or in this case, negative space. And what negative space is, it's basically the space that you leave around your design, which is just as important as the objects you place in it. Negative space gives your design room to breathe, essentially. So how do we create white space? We start by not trying to fill all open areas in our composition with content. It can be difficult to remember, especially when you feel like there's a gaping hole in your design, but with careful planning, negative space can actually enhance your work and not drag it down. If we already have a piece designed and it feels too busy, then we might want to think about scaling it down as well, which is another way to introduce negative space into your design. By scaling down your imagery, your types, or your graphics, you can create luxurious white space around your focal point while still staying within the frame of your original graphic. And then finally, let it go. I'm not going to break out into song, don't worry. But basically, that's another key way to create white space, is to just let it go. You need to ask yourself during the creation process if each element is 100% necessary to the overall design. If it isn't, nix it. By subtracting unnecessary bits and pieces of your design, you can create a more direct design that makes the most of white spaces, of your white space. And then finally, since we've discussed all of the points rather rapidly, I'm just going to quickly end with one of my favorite quotes from one of my OSU professors. And it's that it's important to learn the rules so you know how to break them properly. You can't know how to build something correctly if you don't know the rules. And sometimes you need to break those rules in order to make a design that's exactly what you're going for. So design will always be flawed as well if you don't have the purpose defined. The important part is making sure that your overall design has been well thought out. Make sure that you understand and know the purpose of what you're trying to communicate, and you'll be able to communicate that much more effectively. And that's all I have today. So Will, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know if we have any questions over Facebook Live. So we might.
We do have a couple questions. Bonnie asks, selecting fonts can be overwhelming. Do you have any tips or go-to tools you use for picking a font or pairings for a new project?
So I use a couple of websites for when I'm kind of in a rut in choosing fonts. Typo Wolf is one of them. Basically, it shows you kind of a list of a bunch of fonts that are available to users, and then also possible font pairings that go great with it. And then when in doubt, use what you're comfortable with. I have a tendency to fall back on ones that I know look good and I trust as far as what's in my font library.
Okay. Let's see if we have any other questions. I actually had a question. So this kind of goes back to what you're talking about with negative space and making sure that you only have in there what's really the most important and most vital pieces of content. And if it's not contributing to what you're really trying to communicate, you need to pull it out. How do you go about deciding that? How do you really go about deciding what is essential and only going with those essentials and subtracting the non-essential?
So that's a lot easier said than done, I will say. Sometimes when you have a client, they want everything on the page and you can't cut things out essentially. And this is where scaling down comes into play. So basically it's just playing with the elements that you know you have to put on the page and making sure you design around all of those elements. And if it's something that you don't need like a certain color or an extra photo or things like that, that's where I would say then make the cut.
Thank you. Katie asks, how do you start up a new project and what's your process?
So what I normally do whenever I'm first starting a project is basically going into brainstorming phase. And that generally means that I get my big old sketchbook and I just draw till my heart's content. Sometimes they're just little scribbles. Other times they're little detailed thumbnails, but I just draw probably about 100, maybe 50 to 100 little thumbnails of what I'm thinking should be the design, and then build on that kind of footprint that I've started for myself.
All right, thank you. I think we have one more. Nina asks, when would you use serif versus a sans serif font?
I generally lean more towards sans serif when I'm doing my works. So that's just the typeface that speaks to me the most. It's nice and clean and doesn't feel very ornamental. And I can either use serif fonts for headers or subheaders or body copy, depending on the font that you use. And serif fonts, I generally lean more towards using that as my body copy versus headers. So that's kind of usually my process.
Okay, I think we have one more here, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're asking, how would you handle putting like URLs and websites into your design? Is there a certain way that you would format that to make sure that that URL stands out to make sure people know that that's a website to go to? I think that's
Yeah, so websites and URLs can be extremely tricky to fit into a design because they have a tendency to get really long. And this is where tools like tinyurl and bitly sometimes come into play. And if you have an account to um, bitly, you can create these shorter URLs, and they're shorter strands that you can then plug into your page to kind of help squeeze it all together, just because uh, it can be pretty tough to fit that all and to make sure that people get to where they need to go.
Oh, so I think I was mistaken with their question. They were asking for the URL to a typo site that you had mentioned earlier in your presentation when you're talking about fonts. Or maybe there's a typo in the URL. Could you go back and look at the sites that you had mentioned for fonts?
Yeah, so Typewolf is one of the things that one of the resources that I use. I unfortunately don't have the URL handy, but that's one of the options. It should come up whenever you Google search, but that's one of the resources that I utilize.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, Typewolf is the website we're looking for then. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions that we have. Thank you so much, Caitlin. That was really great stuff. That was really informative design vocabulary. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And with that, thank you all at home for sitting around and watching with us. Thank you for joining us on our first All Digital Tech Tuesday at 2. If you've ever missed the Tech Tuesday, if you want to catch up on previous Tech Tuesdays, you can find all of those on the library's website by just searching for Tech Tuesday, or by going on like Google or YouTube and searching for OSU Tech Tuesday. As I said, unfortunately, there's no actual physical prize to give away today, but I have something even better than that, and that's the chance to win $1,000 or one of 4 $300 prizes, and that's with the Library Creativity Award, which I will tell you about right now. You can find out more about the Library Creativity Award and apply for it by going here to the library's website, library.okstate.edu, and up here in the top right, we have search site, and you're just going to type in here Creativity Award, and it's going to be that first result right there. Entries are due April 13th, and there are 4 categories to enter into: 2D, 3D, motion, and wildcard, which is basically anything you have that doesn't fit into those other 3 categories that can fit into wildcard. You can submit anything, and all 4 of these categories, these top 4, have a $300 prize associated with them. And from those 4, one will be chosen to win the Best in Show award, which is $1,000. And you can submit as many entries as you want. If you have paintings and sculptures and videos and anything that you've made in the last year, submit it. You can submit as many as you want. You can win multiple awards. You can submit your TikToks. We've had people submit their TikTok videos, and those are now entries into the Creativity Award. So go for it. Give us anything you want. We have rules, FAQs over here if you need anything like that. Previous winners can be found in the Get Inspired tab with their videos. And like I said, those entries are due on April 13th. You can win the $1,000 Best in Show. You could win all 4 $300 prize categories if you wanted. So just make sure you get those entries in. And when you click Apply Now, they'll take you to this form. This whole section here, the please address award criteria, originality, use of library resources, and all that. That's your chance to sell it. That's your chance to tell us why you deserve to win, why it's a great project. And often that's what separates the winning entries. So y'all, make sure you get those entries in by April 13th. And if you want to check out previous Tech Tuesdays, just go to that same top tab, type in Tech Tuesday up here, and it'll take you there. We really appreciate you all taking your time to join us here today for our first All Digital Tech Tuesday at 2. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for giving us such a great presentation. We hope to see you all return in the fall when we're hopefully back in the Low Creative Studios and we can all meet face to face and give away those prizes again. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you next fall.